Hello and welcome back to the channel where it's been a while since I watched through this series. As you can tell by the title and thumbnail, I am of course referring to the Orville. It's been, the last time I actually watched through the Orville season 1 was when it was airing in 2017. It came out in around the same time as season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. Um, and yeah, so there was obviously that big divisive at that time in the fan base of, there was a lot of hate for Star Trek Discovery season 1 and a lot of love for the Orville season 1. People refer to as the Orville as proper Star Trek, back then. What do I think? I love both shows. I made it clear I'm a Discovery apologist. I love season 1, I love season 2. I enjoyed season 3. Season 4 was eh. Season 5 was, again, enjoyable to a certain extent, but I've already reviewed Season 5 of Discovery when that was airing. But yeah, I decided that, for this year, I want to revisit the Orville, especially now that we know that thanks to Scott Grimes at Star Trek Las Vegas, that season 4 is happening. It should be filming sometime in January. So if that's going on, if they're only now filming, we probably won't get it in season 4 until 2026. With having to do all the visual effects and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's been a while as well since I sat down on one of these classic full season reviews. I think the last time I done one of these was back in February or March for season 2 of Star Trek the Animated Series. I just got burnt out of doing them, so I decided to take a little bit of a break. So I'm going to ease myself back in by doing the Orville, since thankfully they're not 20 plus episodes. So yeah, let's get started with episode 1, Old Wounds, where yeah, it's the opener. So what do I think of it? Back when I first watched through this first season when it came out, I thought that it was, some of the episodes were hit or miss. Some of the comedy, it took a while to get, for, the show to get going and stuff. But upon rewatch, I still love it. I still love it, and I still love this episode. It's a great introduction to this world, of, the Union, as opposed to Starfleet, how everything looks. It takes place like further than we've seen in Star Trek, excluding the 32nd century. Because only at the end of Star Trek Picard season 3 that they were in the 2400s. This already starts in the 2400s. So obviously, yeah, there are similarities in terms of rank. Division, we do see that there's different divisions, and they all have, you know, symbols. If you wear a blue uniform, you're in command. If you wear reddish orange, it's either your security or engineering. And then green is medical. Now, I see a lot of people complain about James Gunn, hiring people that he knows, his family, his friends. Where's that same energy for Seth MacFarlane? Because a lot of people he's hired in this show has not only appeared on Star Trek, but have appeared in other of his shows, like Commander Bortis, for example. He's now recently reappeared in Family Guy as the head of the brewery. Scott Grimes is the voice of Steve Smith um, in American Dad. And when we get to episode 4, if the star should appear, we see one of the characters in there would later go on to play young John in the TED series, and it's the same with the episode Majority Rules. One of the characters of Larissa there plays John's cousin in the TED series. So he has a fondness of reusing certain actors that he's worked with in the past. So if you're going to give that same negative energy to James Gunn for, constantly casting friends and family, then you should give that to Seth MacFarlane, because he's also notorious for doing that. It's not a problem for me, but something I thought I should mention. But yeah, Old Wounds is a good opener. We get introduced to the Krill as well. And we get to introduce to our cast and our crew. The episode opens up with Ed's wife cheating on him with a Retupsian named Derulio, who becomes important later on. And because of that, that put where he could have become a captain, he starts to go into a year slump, and then he gets offered the Orville, which is a beautiful ship, and the set design is actually pretty good because it's all just one. I think for the most part, it's just like one giant set. Because I remember the YouTuber Black Nerd Comedy, when this series was coming out, he got to tour the set of the Orville. So the bridge and then the spiral staircase going down, leading into the other parts of the ship. That's all just one ginormous set, which is fucking amazing. Um, and another thing that I can, I have to sing praises for with the Orville is the one thing that it does that modern Star Trek, just doesn't do all that often, and that is exterior shots of the ship. We see a lot of exterior shots of the Orville, which is amazing because I love that and I miss that in Star Trek. When I'm watching this, but yeah, old wounds. We get the Krill show up. The Orville is tasked to go to this research place because apparently they have something that would, if the Krill get their hands on it, means it could be used as a weapon because it ages things up rapidly. And as well as they're on their way there, turns out Ed Mercer's XO is going to be his ex-wife, Hijinks Asu. Now, as the series has gone on, I've really grown to love Kelly as a character. She is not that your typical strong woman trademark. That's just strong for no reason. It gives her, the show takes time to layer out her character. She feels guilty for cheating on Ed, and so she's using her family connection to get him a captain's position, something he should have had already had it not been for her cheating on him. And I love seeing just how Ed and Kelly's relationship fixes itself throughout the series, as things go on. Yeah, in the early parts of of this episode, of episode one, and future episodes, there's a few digs here and there at towards Kelly for about the cheating and the divorce. Um, but I love seeing just how close those two have become by the end of the series, and even into series two and series three. So yeah, Old Wounds, great episode, great introduction, in my opinion, for this show. However, Command Performance is an episode that I just don't like, and it's mainly because of one character that I just don't gel well with, and that is Alara Katan. Yes, a lot of people's fans' favorite Alara Katan just doesn't do it for me. I don't like her. I prefer the character who replaces her further down the line. Towards the end and around season two, compared to Alara herself. The two episodes that she gets dedicated to herself this season, just I really do not like. This being one of them, where Ed and Kelly get taken to this zoo and put on display because of this species who is far more advanced. Sees anyone that isn't as advanced as them, that they can just do whatever they want, and that's how they have the zoos for all these other species, mocklins, and a whole bunch of other species. And eventually, Alara is left in charge, her first time being in charge, and she freaks out. She's initially told by the Admiralty to report back to Earth, and that Ed and Kelly are going to be marked as lost in the line of duty, and that the Orville will be signed a new captain and first officer. Initially, she's going to do that, and everyone else on the crew are like really against that. But eventually, she grows a pair and like, fuck it, let's go rescue them, and they do. End of episode. And so, what is it that I just don't like about Alara? I don't know. I think it's because she reminds me of another character that I just did not like. at the time of watching this, I was working my way through Star Trek Enterprise, um, and there was a character, one of the characters in Star Trek Enterprise I just hated, and that was Hoshi Sato, and so Alara just kind of reminded me of that character of Hoshi Sato. So unfortunately, I embedded that disdain of one character onto this character, and even after rewatching this series again, I still just don't like her. Like I like that, in season 2 and season 3, that after she left the show, that she shows up every now and again. That I'm happy with. That I can deal with. But yeah, I don't know. She just seems a bit too whiny for me, in my opinion. And in this episode, one of the key plot points is that Bortus has laid an egg, and he must now sit on it to incubate it for the next 20 odd days, which is why Alara is the one left in charge. And at the end of the episode, the egg hatches, and it's a girl, which is not good for the Mocklins because they're a single gendered species, and they just don't like women in general. And that then leads us into one of the most important episodes that essentially gets referenced a lot in season 2 and a lot in season 3, and that is about a girl, where the Bortis and Clyden decide that Topa, which is the name they end up giving her, has to go through the corrective procedure to have a sex change to a male, because a single gendered species, only males are allowed. And initially, both of them were on board with that. They after the captain and everyone on the board, the Orville, refusing to do so, they go behind their back and contact Mocklus to do the procedure themselves. And it's in around this time when they're waiting for that John Lamar and oh, I'm forgetting his name now. Why am I forgetting his name? I don't know why I was forgetting his name. Gordon Malloy, Scott Grimes' character. They show Bortis the Rudolph movie, the Rankin Boss Rudolph movie, the stop motion one. And it's here when Bortis is like, oh, this, what they would see as defective aspect of their child's life isn't that defective. It could go on to be important, like with Rudolph, with his bright nose, being able to lead Santa Claus's sleigh at night. And so he tries to convince Clyden of this, and that's the no go. And that's when Clyden drops the bombshell that Clyden had the corrective procedure done to him, which Bortus didn't know. And so then it becomes a courtroom drama. Now, this episode um, is directed by Brandon Braga of Star Trek fame, who has written and directed quite a few Star Trek episodes. And he's co-written an episode for this, as well as maybe one or two others, and has directed quite a few. And you can tell the Star Trek isms when Braga directs, because it feels Star Trek. The About a Girl is this big courtroom drama episode, which is synonymous. I can't say that word for some reason. But you know what word I'm trying to say. With Star Trek, Star Trek has a lot of courtroom dramas, and they're some of the most best episodes of Star Trek. And it's this case here. About a Girl is one of my favorite episodes of season 1. And unfortunately, even after revealing that one of their greatest writers uh, is a Mocklin female, um, Topa still has to undergo the correction to become male. And that puts a rift between Clyden and Bortus, which we start to see, in somewhat in the next episode, if the star should appear, as well as in further episodes where they haven't been intimate with each other. Bortus is constantly leaving early to go to work and staying late working. not giving as much time to Clyden and Topa as he should. Um, so yeah, if the star should appear, is basically an episode where the Orville encounters this big, massive generational ship adrift, and if it keeps going for a couple of months, that they will crash into a star and go dead. So they sneak on, and this is the episode where I said that the young John character from the Ted series uh, is is in this episode. And it's not until I rewatched it and I was looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, that's him. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting episode. It also has a guest appearance from Liam Neeson towards the end. Where basically these people are on a generational ship. So long has passed that they don't know that they're on a generational ship. Some of the people do, and so Alara gets shot, Kelly gets kidnapped and tortured, and eventually they fix it. They reveal it all to them, and episode ends essentially. Episode 5 is an interesting one called Priya, where basically it's kind of again going back to Star Trek Enterprise here. It's an episode where this character of Priya saves the Orville from destruction. Because in the timeline's sake, it had the Orville as lost in the line of duty by being destroyed here. And so Priya, being a time traveler, um, has traveled back in time to save the Orville, to bring it back into like the 26th century, I believe, to sell it off to like this as an antique, because it's so collectible and stuff, and that's what they do. That's what she does. They found a way to time travel, and so they'll bring the crew there, and they will have to live out in this new era of time. But that, of course, doesn't happen. But it's also here where Ed immediately is smitten with Priya. He starts to develop feelings for her right away, which doesn't sit right with Kelly. And this is again another interesting part of the rebuilding relationship between Ed and Kelly, where Kelly is instantly smelling the the BS that Priya is spinning, and it turns out that she was right. And so, but eventually they take back control of the ship thanks to Isaac being uploaded into the ship's computer, and they close down this wormhole that was used to time travel. So that way they can't time travel anymore, because if it's destroyed here, it can't exist then in the future. Um, but it builds a question now, knowing about season two. Had the Orville been destroyed here, what would happen when it came to the Kalon? Because we know that Ed had to be in that captain's chair on the Orville in order for them to survive the Kalon attack. And then eventually in season 3, broker peace with the Kalon. Where had it been destroyed and when it was supposed to in this episode, would that still be the case? Would that then lead to humanity and organic downfall? But it also then begs the question of, if that's the case, then how is there still how are people survive? So maybe that might be a what if theory that I can work on, discuss it. But anyway, next episode is another really interesting one, and that is the episode titled Krill. Because we've only seen what Krill looked like in episode 1. We know that the Union is trying to avoid a war with the Krill. Um, and it's here that we actually go on board a Krill and ship and learn more about them. Because after the Orville successfully destroys a Krill ship that is attacking a colony, um, one of the shuttles is manages to survive, and so that's when the Admiralty sends Ed and Gordon, disguised as Krill, to go and get this book that they swear by, because usually when a spacefaring species reaches that, they abandon all religion. Not the Krill, though. They still believe heavily in Avis and are using that as an excuse to go on these holy crusades to kill and murder people, especially humans. Um, and so we get them to, it's a very interesting episode because they were initially then decide, Ed and Gordon discovered this big massive weapon that they were going to use on this colony that has zero defenses and over 100,000 people live on that planet. But then they discovered, so they were willing to kill everyone that was on that ship. And then they discovered that there was children on board. And that's when Ed changes his mind. And that's when he also realizes that the krill live in low light. So if you crank the lumens up to maximum, they're gonna burn to death. I mean, humans, they'll just get really, really bad sunburn, potentially cancer. Um, but yeah, and it's also here where we meet um, someone who becomes important later on. Name is escaping me at the moment. But then we move on to another fantastic episode called Majority Rule, where basically this planet's entire society is governed on Reddit upvotes and downvotes. If you have a lot of upvotes, you're seen as the most trustworthy person. But if you have like a lot of downvotes and you get to like over 1 million downvotes, what you just did is then considered a crime, and then you have to go on an apology tour to hope to not reach 10 million downvotes. Because if you do get 10 million downvotes, your ass is being lobotomized. And that's what happens. Two researchers from the Union who have infiltrated to observe this planet uh, got 10 million downvotes because they were sitting on a bus discussing things, didn't see that a pregnant woman was standing to offer their seat to her. And because of that, a picture was snapped, posted on the master feed, and one of them got shot trying to escape. The other got lobotomized. And so they go to try and find out what happened. And then John Lamar humps a important religious statue and has to go on the apology tour. And this again, like I said, John's cousin in the Ted TV series is here playing Larissa or something beginning with L. Um, and yeah, it's a very interesting dystopian episode where everything is all done on this master feed, and everything's all put to a vote, and whatever the majority votes on is fact. And so you have to be like super super duper careful as to not get 1 million downvotes. Even having 500,000 downvotes prevents you from like shopping or getting coffee somewhere because of downvotes that you get. Um, and Larissa becomes important later on. The next episode, again, co-written and directed by Brannon Braga. The episode titled Into the Fold, um, where Dr. Finn and her two sons, which is their first appearance, Ty and Marcus, are going on a holiday. And normally it was supposed to be, Malloy to bring them, but he's preoccupied, and so it's Isaac who goes with them. And as they do, kids being kids, shenanigans shits happen, ends up accidentally marooning them on a planet, and again, another Star Trekism, of a shuttle crash landing on a planet, and then, the crew having to try and survive until they can get found again. And like I said, very Star Trekism. Hasn't happened in a while. There hasn't been. I mean, there was that one in Discovery, season 4, with Tilly and a bunch of cadets, but it's not something that gets seen a lot more. And I love those types of episodes. And that's why I love this episode. Because, it's Ty and Marcus learning to adapt without their mother under Isaac, and it's how they became close to Isaac, and Claire tried to escape and get back to them, um, and her drive to get back to her children, but it's also because of seeing how Isaac was protective of her children. That's what led her to have grow these feelings for Isaac, which plays out next season. So yeah, next episode is Cupid's Dagger. If you see me looking down, it's because I have my laptop pulled up here with the descriptions of the episodes, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh yes, Cupid's Dagger. Remember how I said that Derulio would become important later on? Well, guess who's come to dinner? Yes, Derulio has come because he is a archaeologist and the only one that can help broker peace between these two species that would just love nothing else but to kill each other over this planet of Lepovis. And so yeah, Derulio comes on. He starts to emit pheromones, which infects Kelly, who then sleeps with Derulio yet again. Also affects Ed. Ed doesn't get to sleep with Derulio, unfortunately. But it also starts to affect others because Derulio walked through Yaphet, played by Norm Macdonald, who, rest in peace, I love, I do miss him, uh, especially going forward with season 4, because Yaphet is just seen as like a joke character of sorts, but I would have loved to see more of him. He played a pivotal role in season 2, which I'll get to next month. But yeah, basically, it turns out these both species have rights to this, and they avert a war. And it's also revealed that perhaps Derulio was in heat when he slept with Kelly a year ago. Which then brings us on to another episode that I really don't like, and it's the other Alara-centric episode, Firestorm, where basically they're in this iron storm, and Alara is told to go down to engineering because one of the engineers um, of Ensign Payne was crushed, and so she, being the only strong enough person on board to do so, is about to save him, but when fire gets up into her face, that spooks her, and because of that, Payne dies, and she blames herself for that. And so she contacts her parents, one of which is played by Robert Picardo of Star Trek fame. Yeah, a few Star Trek alumni do appear. I mean, like the chief medical officer of Claire was in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Even Ed was in 2 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise. Speaking of Enterprise, this episode also felt like the one episode that I really did not like about Hoshi Sato, and that is the episode where in Enterprise she is being beamed up and she experienced the whole episode is experienced while while she's in the transporter buffer. And that's similar. This episode is similar to that. So, in order for Alara to make sure that she is still fit to do her job, invokes this thing that basically forces her to have a memory web put into a simulation with a lot of these different types of fears: clowns, spiders, evil Isaac, darkness, loneliness, and she has to work to get through it. She does, and yeah, not my favorite episode because again I didn't like that Enterprise episode. I see this as being one and the same, and yeah. Then we get on to the just 2 more episodes to really talk about, and that is New Dimensions, where chief of engineering officer Newton is being promoted and is going to design space stations. And it's also here that we discovered that John Lamar is actually a smart person, like really, really smart, like should be in the command division. And so Kelly suggests that John become the chief engineer. Um, and so there's that happens. Also, it's revealed here that to Ed that Ellie Kelly was the one to get Ed that captain's chair, and he freaks out about this. We also discovered two-dimension space, and so event they have to go into it into the two-dimension space to avoid Krill because of this smuggler who has Krill disruptors. And eventually they make it out, and Lamar is becomes the chief medical officer, which Yaffa initially was against because he was next in line to become the chief not medical officer, the chief engineer. And yeah, it's a good episode. I really enjoyed it. Next up is Mad Il- Iliotry. I probably butchered that. It's the episode where basically Kelly becomes God. They discovered this. Ed and Kelly are starting to rekindle their relationship, and it's also here where we discover a planet that only exists in our universe for 11 days, and when they go back to their native universe, and by the time they loop back around, 700 years have passed. So as the landing party, including hungover Kelly, is just going to explore it, see what's going on. The planet literally forms around them, and so they inadvertently crash land. Kelly goes for a walk, discovers that this planet is in early Bronze Age, accidentally contaminates with locals, heals a kid, and becomes their god. And when they come back around, it's now the 14th century. She tries to fix it. That doesn't work. And so Isaac is the one that then goes to spend 700 years there. When they come back, they're spacefaring people, and they tell Kelly, look, not to worry about it. We had to go through this. If it wasn't you who was deemed as our god, or our god, um, it would have been someone else. And that is the end of the season with Kelly saying to Ed that they shouldn't be a thing because Ed risked his captaincy to omit that Kelly had contact with the species of the planet and healed one of them with the dermal regenerator. And so yeah, that is season one of the Orville. After not watching it for like 7 years and only seeing clips of it every now and again, I enjoyed it. It still holds up. It's still a fantastic series, and I can't wait to rewatch season two because some of my favorite episodes are in season two, especially when I get around to season three, even though it hasn't really been that long since season three. Well, that is going to wrap this video up. So there is, of course, one more video for this month, and it's not a movie review. No, no, no. As you might have seen early on this month, I started a new thing, a new kind of review series on the channel, where I am reviewing every Borg episode of Star Trek, scripted. And so it is now time to give an explanation as to why I don't like the best of both worlds. So yeah, that will be out on Monday. So probably there'll be a monthly pickups out as well at some point, if not, if it hasn't been out already. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. That is now me done with September, and I can start working on the Spooky Dookie month. When as September is going on. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all on the next upload.